it's the Mad Queen. Welcome to the Queen's Lair. I want to go over, honestly, I'm going to tell you now, in my opinion, this is the only gear cleansing guide you're ever going to need. The reason for that is because I don't do my gear cleanses as typical as a lot of other people. So you're either going to love this or you're going to hate it, but this works tremendously for me, and it's been a huge help since I've switched and started to actually cleanse my gear in this way that I'm about to show you. So specifically, I want to talk about when you go in the bag and you're looking through gear and you want to decide, oh, what should I keep? What should I keep? Let's take a look at this. This has resist, crit rate, and HP. I'm going to get rid of this. You might think, oh yeah, of course you're going to get rid of it because it's got HP flat stat and it's got resist on it. That's not exactly why. And, well, you're also probably thinking it's a Hero's Edge set, and it's got resist on it and flat stat HP. The crit rate is nice, right? Because we often do look for that stat on this piece of gear. The reason I am getting rid of this is only because of the extra HP, the flat stat HP. Whenever I look at legendary gear and what I'm going to keep and what I'm going to get rid of, I just make sure that there are 3 viable stats before I lock that piece. I don't pay attention to if the stats on this piece are going to match up with whatever the bonus it's going to give. The reason why, and I know this may sound crazy, honestly, is because you can't look at this game the same as you do at other games. When I say that, it's because the classes here and the things that these heroes can do in general within this game are much different than other games in this genre. And I think that's a big reason a lot of people enjoy this, is because it's very similar to all of the games like this in this genre, but it's also very different. And what I mean by that specifically is when you take a look at heroes like Daniel, who just came out, brand new S Summoner class hero. When we take a look at his ultimate ability, it says Daniel's Dire Bear is going to inherit 100% of Daniel's attack and 100% of Daniel's defense. And then the health is going to be equal to 2600% of his attack. Okay? And there's obviously more, but so that means not only do you want to build attack into this hero, right? Because this is more of an offensive hero. You want to use Daniel to deal damage. You want to also put defense into it because if his summons are alive whenever he summons more summons onto the battlefield, he's going to deal extra damage that's usually AoE, and it's going to be dependent on solely if they are still alive whenever he summons new ones, because they won't explode and deal extra damage if they're not alive when he summons the new ones. And of course, you're going to need defense to help keep them alive in general. So specifically, when I build Daniel out, I'm telling you this build that I have on him, and I have a video all about Daniel. This is not meant to directly be all about Daniel. This is just an example. But this build works excellent on him. And whenever I put the Hero's Edge set on him, I looked to make sure that every single piece that I had defense percent in the substats, because I knew not only is he transferring 100% of his attack, he's transferring 100% of his defense, and that's big. So you don't only just want to focus on defense, or you don't only want to just focus on attack, you want to focus on defense as well. But of course, because he is an offensive hero, I'm not going to go along and look for defensive boots or defensive hat or defense on the gloves as the main percentage. So you can get a really good buff out of that if you're looking to make sure that you have defense percentage on the substats. Before I started doing this, I mean, I honestly could have much better defense on Daniel than I have right now. The reason is because I was looking at sets like this, like the hero specifically, and thinking, on the hero set, right, it gives an extra 15% damage or attack damage. And so I want to look for substats like crit rate, crit damage, extra attack, accuracy maybe, things like that. And man, I don't really need like resistance or defense percent or HP percent or anything like that. So I was throwing all that stuff away. Honestly, let me say, I can be a bit of a hoarder when it comes to having gear. But that's okay as long as you're hoarding things that could potentially help you. This does not mean that if you're going to keep these pieces, you should level them immediately to see if they're good. There's going to be a lot of times where pieces of gear are going to be very, very situational, and you might have to switch up the gear set, but try to keep somewhat of the same stats. I know, I'm trying not to get too far into this. Depending on the content where you're using these heroes. So if you have a piece of gear that has, oh, I'm clicking on all the wrong things, like usual. But if you have a piece of gear that has 3 viable substats, lock it, keep it. You never know. They are literally coming out with heroes all the time. And Summoner's class is the class that calls for you to have weird gear because you get different percentages from the main hero transferred onto the summoners, and it's not always the same. So I highly recommend that you keep any piece that has 3 viable stats. And whenever I say viable, I mean get rid of anything that has extra HP, extra attack, extra defense, anything like that. Basically substats that are going to have a flat stat. See, like this right here, extra defense, 34. It's got crit rate and crit damage, which is great. But this is where it comes down to if you're actually kind of hoarding the things or if you are really looking to get the most out of your gear. If you don't know this, percentages give you way more stats and way more of a boost in your stats than flat stats do. So even if you're going to have a useless stat on one of your pieces of equipment, you may as well make sure that it's going to be a percentage, because the chances are that the stat, no matter what it is really going to give some kind of extra benefit to your hero, whether it is resistance or damage reduction or whatever, and it's on an offensive hero that deals damage. You know, think about PvP. It just really depends. And as much as I would love to keep this piece and roll it, that's going to be the difference for me between actually being a hoarder of gear and not. I only keep pieces now that have 3 viable stats. Do this, and you're going to find that whenever you start getting into more niche builds, where it's not necessarily general builds, I guess you could say, and you're going to start really unlocking more and more potential of the heroes because you're getting really into their niche builds, you're going to see a huge difference. So honestly, I know it sounds crazy. I have personally never heard anybody else give this advice when it comes to gear. But trust me, this game it's not normal like other games. It is kind of weird, but in a good way, like I've said. So keep those pieces. I promise you, you're not going to regret this. And if you're a newer player or if you're in the mid game or wherever you might be, of course, you're not going to have a bunch of legendary gear to keep. For you, I recommend, but whenever you get to yellow, just make sure that whatever is on here is going to be actually beneficial to the set, because that is going to be important here. You don't get into niche builds until you have legendary gear, really. So make sure that you're only keeping gear that does benefit the set when you have the yellow gear. And on the red gear, make sure that one of the stats is going to benefit that set and the other one is a viable set or a viable stat, meaning it's not flat stat, attack, HP, defense. Gear cleanses do not have to be difficult, and I feel a lot of times they are made to be pretty difficult, and I don't understand why. So this, in my opinion, makes it extremely easy. You never know what you're going to need as far as gear. Sometimes you need to have a really good balance between survivability and damage, even on your heroes that are meant to deal damage. If you guys have any questions or comments, let me know below. You may think I'm crazy, but this is honestly going to be the best bet. This does not have to be complicated. Don't make it complicated. If it's got the viable stats, keep it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. This video was brought to you in collaboration with Eternal Evolution. Download the game for free now in the iOS or Google Play Store. You can also use my personal game download code in the video description to show some support. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.